Okay, thank you. Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask George to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abadili.
Present.
Foster.
Present.
Gilmore present. Hearn.
Present.
Lee.
Present.
Moran.
Present.
Sampu is presently absent. Administrator Darcy Carley.
Present.
Staff member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
Agent Ed Hoops.
Present.
We have a quorum and the floor is yours, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Welcome to the Barnstable Conservation Commission's afternoon hearing on August the 9th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded and transmitted by the Information Technology Department of the Town of Barnstable on Channel 18. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, anyone else desiring to make such a recording or transmissions, please let Channel 18 or I know. Hearing none, this afternoon we have two revised plans. The first one is Daniel and Sandra Guyler, SE3-5690. This is tabled from July the 12th. And John.
Good afternoon, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. We were before you last month with a set of stairs off of a pier on one of the lakes. The applicant I see is here now. I sounded like in pleasure of jury duty earlier and weren't sure they were going to make it. But they did provide a letter, some information that we forwarded to the commission about how these stairs help with the handicap access. I think it kind of generally confirms what I was trying to get out last time, that by getting out towards where there's actually some water, which helps with the buoyancy, they are able to get up out of the wheelchair and with assistance down some steps and be in an amount of water that they can maneuver versus trying to go across the beach and there are steps and there is trying to actually even still get out to a point where there is sufficient water for buoyancy. So you have that email and we're here and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
There is that email dated the July the 22nd, and Darcy or Kim sent out that email later this morning or early afternoon here. So, question from the commissioner. Louise?
I should have noticed this before, but for sure there are handrails on that set of stairs that is going to help pull oneself up, right? In the design.
They are nodding that there are handrails on, yes.
They are what, not?
They are nodding. The applicant is nodding that yes, there is a handrail.
Okay, great.
John.
I assume we would condition this with the sunset clause?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bill?
I was asking about the sunset clause. How does that work? What's the duration or how does that work?
So when we have a sunset clause, basically we are saying that the stair will be removed if there is no demonstration need for that.
Okay.
Certainly, Bill, I would think enforcement always becomes a iffy question, but you rely on the honesty of the applicant.
Right. I just wondering.
or the sale of the property, transfer of the property.
True. So the other thing I need to is, John, I need some dimensions on the stair, and you may want to include your railing on that label on the revised plan.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve this revised plans and subject to receipt of another revised plan showing stair and railing in the dimension of the stair and with the sunset clause?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Moran.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. The second revised plan is...
Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
The
John.
second revised plan is 51 Sunset Point LLC SE 3-5981. John.
Good afternoon, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting again. I'll bring up a figure that we submitted with our revised plan letter. This was for a project with renovation additions, included sort of a substantial amount of foundation work to begin with, basically highlighted in pink on this plan. And at this point, nothing has started yet, but I believe will be in the fall. And the contractor and the owners and everyone, I think, at this point has decided that given that extent of foundation work, it's probably best to just put the whole thing on a new foundation. And so that's what's being requested under this before you this afternoon.
Question from the commissioner? I think this is pretty much logical in terms of if you're replacing that much with the new foundations. I mean, the rest is probably only like maybe 30% of that. So you might as well have the new foundation in there so that you have a good structural sound foundations. Could I have a motion to approve the revised plan and submit it?
Approved. Move. Second, whatever. Second, third, whatever you want it to be.
I'll second Larry's motion.
Roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Lee?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
Hearn?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
very
you.
much.
We have one enforcement order. Ed is the applicant here. I mean, is the homeowner here?
Yes, she is. I saw her here. That's Pam Nothiker.
Okay. We have one enforcement order. Estate of Rita B. and Daniel S. Hawkins, 36 Daisy Bluff Road, Hyannis, maps 326, parcel 081. Alteration of buffer to a wetland resource area. Coastal bank town within lands subject to coastal storm flowage by cutting vegetations. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually pretty straightforward. This came in as a neighborhood, anonymous neighborhood complaint. You can see the Exhibit A shows the aerial of the property. There is a townway to water that runs through this point here. The location, it was essentially two large, very, very, very tall, large shrubs that were removed from this location. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like then. So again, this is the down at the foot of the revetment here, looking back toward the house, and then this is the view going out. It wasn't a huge, it's not a huge area that was cut, but and again, because they were such large shrubs to begin with, it's very noticeable now. So what I'm asking is just the straightforward restoration of the area to essentially take the area, mulch it, or use mulch to stabilize the site so that you don't have any slippage over the revetment by the end of the week here. Then a plan by the 15th and finish the restoration planting by October 31st of this year. 2 reports and for over the next 2 years, and any vista corridor that they would wish to make out of this that would require an RDA final with the commission. And that's all I have. And the homeowner is in the audience.
Thanks, Ed. Any question from the commissioner to Ed?
I don't have any questions at this time. I'd just like to hear what the property owner had to say. And I assume you had some discussions with them, which you haven't mentioned. So let's see what they have to say and see where we go from there.
Actually, most of what we removed was, I mean, the picture, I don't know when that picture was taken, but most of what we removed was weeds and vines that had been overgrown, and there were some dead trees. And we are, I mean, it is already mulched, and we are planning on planting, but we also have 2 large trees that you can see. I mean, we're leaving all the trees along the townway to water, but there are 2 large trees where the whole bottom of the trees are dead, that we would like to remove before we replant things. So that there were 2 small shrubs there that over the years after my mom had a stroke are overgrown, that we would like to remove if that's possible, and then replant something that's lower, but still.
I can help her with the tree request as well then.
That would have to be a filing, correct, Ed?
If it's just the 2 trees, we could probably do it administratively. We'll see where they are.
Okay.
Yeah, work with the staff on this one. So.
And I apologize for doing something that we weren't supposed to do. Honestly, we didn't know. And we are, obviously our plan is not to impact conservation. It was to, I mean, every time I go in there, I get poison ivy. So it was trying to mitigate that and not walk away covered with poison ivy all the time.
Understand. I mean, we all get.
And are there any restrictions about taking away weeds?
Yes.
You can't take away weeds?
I can explain it better for you. If you'd like, I can meet you out on site when we look at the trees, and I can explain that further. Okay. But yeah, generally you're not supposed to be cutting things down in in that 50-foot area without some sort of prior authorization from the commission.
Yeah, you need to talk to the agent in the office.
Okay. So you guys would be.
I think we need to have Pam state her name. I saw her name on the screen, but just so that the minutes will reflect that she's the daughter of the prior owner.
Sure.
I presume that's your status.
Yes, I'm Pam Nothacker.
Tom, can I say something, please?
Yeah, just 1 minute. Larry, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Bill?
Yeah, I would just like to say to Pam that sometimes it seems like we're unfair, if you will, and we're, well, why can't I clear that? You just asked about the weeds. And basically what we're interested in doing is protecting the wetlands or the water bodies that are down below. And if you take all the weeds out and you leave just dirt, you're having the potential for erosion. And so therefore, and people will do that. They'll clear everything out. And so the way the rules are set up, it's kind of like, well, we have to be really careful about, not having erosion. Another thing about weeds is that weeds take up nutrients. They also filter pollutants. You can have bacteria, you can have who knows what besides sediment washing down towards the water body or the wetlands. And so, we really like to maintain a vegetated strip and protect that. And that's why weeds have to be protected, if you will. It may seem kind of like crazy, they're just weeds, but they have a function.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, Bill. Could I have a motion to approve the enforcement order as written?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Moran.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster.
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good luck. Talk to Ed about your tree removal or the weed and stuff like that. So. We have one warning
Thank
letter.
you.
We have one warning letter, Hyannis Rotary, LLC, 10 Hyannis Avenue, Hyannis Port, maps 287, parcel 131. Failure to comply with an order of conditions, maintaining erosion control for SE 3-5752. Ed.
It is what it says it is. There's nothing great story with this one. They are working on fixing that as we speak. Should be done by the end of the week at the latest.
Okay. Any question for Ed? We have 3 easy certificate of compliance. One is Christopher McNary, SE 3-5362. And the second one is Christopher McNary, SE 3-5670. The third one is Ronald and Linda Knight, SE 3-5818. Could I have a motion to approve the?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Channel 18, we're going to take a break until 4:30.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're all set.
Thank you, David. Before I open the second half of the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask Joel to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abadili,
Present.
Foster,
Present.
Gilmore present, Hearn,
Present.
Lee,
Present.
Moran,
Present.
Sampu is still absent. We Administrator Darcy Carley,
Present.
staff member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Acting under the provisions of Mayor General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and or Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August the 9th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. on the applications of Lawrence Sullivan, Pamela Randall, Steve Cohen, 209 Bay LLC, 209 Bay LLC. The hearing will be held remotely as televised on Channel 18. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending email requests to Darcy Curley at 376 Main Street, Hyannis. This meeting is being recorded and submitted by the Information Technology Department of the Town of Barnstable on Channel 18. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, anyone else desiring to make such a recording or transmissions, please let Channel 18 know I know. Hearing none, this afternoon's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda next to each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisement. Please send your checks to Conservation Division at 367 Main Street before the hearing. Remote participations. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state emergency signed up by the Lieutenant Governor on July 16, 2022, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. One, the hearing will be televised via Channel 18. Second, the real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commissions utilizing the Zoom link 871-5421-3243 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. Third, the public can also email the comment to darcy.curley@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. Let me see. Under the continuance for the amended order, the applicants, the homeowner has request for the 55 Beechwood Road has request for a continuance to August the 30th without testimony. The engineer was sick last week because of the COVID, and this is the last continuance for this amended order. We have one RDA this afternoon. The one is Lawrence Sullivan's septic system upgrade at 91 Creekview Beach Road, Hyannis, as shown on the Assessors Map 267, Parcel 115. Dan?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Lee, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Downcape Engineering in Yarmouth Port, bringing you a relatively straightforward plan here. It's a tight site. It's about 10,000 feet. But luckily, we do have room to meet all the Title V requirements. So we just need a few, at least to the resource areas. We've got a couple of variances needed. There's a little Halls Creek that runs north-south in this area. We're in the outer riparian zone. Septic upgrades are generally exempted under the Rivers Act. But we're still looking at the bordering vegetated wetland of that stream. And looks like we're going to be able to maintain a 50-foot work limit line. So you'll see the silt fence, I guess perhaps with the exception of one little cesspool that's going to be removed just a few feet into the 50. But we're replacing those cesspools with a brand new system. They would get a septic tank, pump chamber, pumping it up, and we're going to have that full 5 foot of separation to groundwater, which DeFeo and Waite found was the most important aspect of siting these. Even if they get a little bit closer, if you've got that separation, you get the virus attenuation prior to hitting the aquifer. So that's a good improvement for the site, we feel. Working under maximum feasible compliance with the health department, I would imagine that these variances would be granted. For you folks, work limit line is about 50 yards of fill to get that system elevated up high enough so we get the full 5 foot of separation. We'll protect that BVW with a silt fence line. There's land subject to coastal storm flowage. It goes up to elevation 12, and that's basically some areas are within that. Most of the site, I guess, would be within the 12 or a little more than half. And again, the riverfront, the septic upgrades are effective. So no new construction. It's only 2 bedrooms. So it's a rather small leaching field. We sized it for about 300 gallons per day, just, so they can do laundry without it failing too quickly. But pretty straightforward project. Be glad to answer any questions if you have them. A nice improvement over existing conditions, I would say.
Question from the commissioner. Bill?
Yeah, I wondered if the owner was made aware of innovative alternative systems that might take nitrogen out. Title V, as we know, does not take the nitrogen out. In fact, the nitrogen will very quickly run down to that very beautiful marsh surrounding Halls Creek. And I know we can't mandate that, but it would be a real upgrade if they were able to do that. Are they even aware of it, Dan?
So this one was contracted through a Bortolotti construction, but I can certainly put a feeler out to the owner to see if they would be interested in that. Generally, where it's not new construction and it's only a 2-bedroom, they would not, as you say, be required, but there's certainly, we could certainly mention that to them and let them know the technology is available, because it does, does help a little bit, and every little bit helps. So I'll certainly mention that to them.
I just like to add, I looked up the address relative to the planned sewer system, and it is not scheduled for a new sewer. It's also a house that's literally sitting right on that very large, beautiful marsh. And so, for 20 grand or whatever, beyond what a normal Title V has, I think it has a meaningful impact, and, in a positive way. So if you can express that to them, it would be good. I understand we can't mandate it, but something they might want to do.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Any other question from the commissioner? One thing I just want to clarify, or a couple of things I just want to mention. One, did you say that you are removing the existing cesspool?
Yes, that's correct.
I think that's important, because this is, you have two, basically, I think you have 2 cesspool there, if I look at it right. Yeah. Then, you should add a label saying that removing it, and then it's clean, because right now there is no label per se for that.
Well, yeah, Note 12, we always put that on there. Existing leaching facility pumped and removed and filled with clean sand. And the town does inspect that as well to make sure that it gets done, the health department. And oftentimes we will too while we're out there.
The other thing is too is, if you're looking at the IA systems, I think that the county septic system loan program may be qualified for the homeowner to fund it by that or as a loan. So you can check that out.
Excellent. I'll mention that.
Any public comment on this? Channel 18?
None.
Yes, this is Bo Hyun, and
who's this?
Our family owns the property adjacent to this, and we just had a question of whether the system would be visible above ground or whether it's located underground.
Through the chair.
Sure. Dan?
So the good news on this is there's high ground. I don't know if you're looking at the screen, but there's elevation 15 and 16 behind this. And so the D box will be below grade. We are extending the contours out to the east a little bit. So there'll be a very slight, basically benching off the site, but it won't be mounded up higher than on your side. I assume you're on the west because it's a wetland to the east. But so it will not look like a mound at all. It'll just be level and then tapering down adjacent to the wetland side.
Terrific. Yeah, that was our
our hope.
That was our hope, our only concern. So thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem. The tanks are all below grade.
Before you go, Kim, do you need the his address?
Yes, if I could just get the last name and the address, please.
The name, it's probably under Elmore, E-L-M-O-R-E, at 97 Craigville Beach Road. It's a family-owned property, so it's a little bit, the name part is a little bit confusing.
My wife's name is Suzanne Elmore Hune, H-U-H-N, for your records.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The other things too is if Dan can go up to the profile, and that will show you that the sloping is not a mound system.
On one side, it's benched off and slopes down, but it doesn't stick up on the west side at all.
Right, right. If you can check with the homeowner, see whether they are interested in terms of the IA system or the nitro systems, and so we'll go from there. We can only recommend it or suggest it, that options. Could I have a motion to approve this project as submitted?
As a negative determination.
Oh, sorry. Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Hearn?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Did I hear you that Davatory was being continued later so I can sign off? Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. We have two NOI this afternoon. The first one is Pamela Randon, construction of a piles sonotube supported boathouse with graded service access ramp, modified pedestrian access path at 117 Eel River Road, Osterville, as shown on the Assessors Map 116, parcel 097. Arlene?
Good afternoon. Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates, here for the Randons. As I think all of you discovered, this is a 3.5 acre site that is very irregularly shaped. And the house is over 600 feet from the site of our boathouse and the waterfront. If you look at the little graphic up in the top left-hand section of the plan, that distance is quite great. So the project is to construct a real boathouse, essentially a shed, which will store one or the other of Ms. Randon's sailboats. She has a catboat, which was cited in the NOI, and there's also a laser, which is narrower, but about the same length, and her boat gear. The side deck on the north side, which is labeled as a walkway, is intended to allow for drying of the sails. So there'll be some hooks protruding down from the roof line, and she'll be able to hang the sails there on the outside to dry. The building footprint, including the deck and the access ramp, is about 360 square feet. But as noted in the application, the whole building is up off the ground several feet because this is in a floodplain. And the access deck and the walkway will all be of graded material. So water will be able to flow through. And in the event of a flood, it will be able to rise up through that graded surface without having any uplift of any significance. So there won't be an issue for storm damage. There will also be breakaway panels around the doors. Again, because this is a non-residential building in a floodplain, it's allowed to be lower than the flood elevation, but there have to be breakaway panels up to or above the flood elevation. So if there's a flood with any velocity waters, the frame for the doors simply breaks out and the water runs freely through the building. We're also proposing that graded surface ramp area. In the notice of intent, there are some pictures of this material. We used it several times before. It's a fiberglass grid, essentially, 1 or 1.5 inch square holes in this material so that any vegetation can grow right up through the openings. But the purpose of it is to prevent the hauling of those boats from creating divots or breaks in the beach area that's a sand and a little bit of a slope that runs up to this building. Right now, Ms. Randon has been using a dolly to haul the boat out of the water. It's a very long way to the house, to any place where there's some security for storage. And she's had some difficulties in the last year or so. She not just broke a leg, but shattered it. And so access and hauling and walking around in kind of an environment has become a little bit difficult. And this facility will help ease the problem of hauling everything back to the house. Apparently, there's also been, unfortunately, a problem with petty theft lately in this area. And so being able to secure the masts and fittings and boating equipment has gotten to be more important than it might have been in the past. The project does not require any mitigation under your regulations. Section 7046A5 specifically exempts water-dependent uses. That includes piers and boathouses, would include marina facilities from the need to provide mitigation. What we have been able to do here is to fit the building in between the existing trees. So although it may be necessary to take out 1 or 2 of the lower limbs on the big tree to the south in setting the building up, the tree itself and the majority of the canopy will remain intact, as will the other trees around the edge. The existing path to the water is simply a mowed surface. It runs right through the area where the boathouse will be sited. What we want to do is turn that path up along the east side of the building so that if they decide to put a second door on the east side, they'll be able just to go right through the building with that path. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions the commission may have.
Question from the commissioner. Anyone?
Yes.
Bill?
Yeah, did John also, did I hear someone else?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, you know, I guess I have a problem with this project somehow, and I can't put my finger on it. And I'd just like to try to express my concerns overall. It's, you know, there are three narrow properties, you know, 1, 2, 3, right there on the coast, and each of them have a dock. They're all narrow properties, and it seems kind of, you know, if you will, built up. And I think of a boathouse just going in there, and it sort of takes up almost all of that coastal property, if you will, the bordering wetland and buffer area, right there. And when you put a boathouse, even if it's elevated, you know, you're going to have, you know, what is your vegetation growth going to be underneath there in terms of a filter to try to filter, you know, runoff and whatnot. And so I'm like thinking a boat dock, man, that's kind of an odd thing. I in my short time here, I've not dealt with a boat dock, and I'm thinking, well, what are the impacts? And I'm feeling like it's just like development that crowds out the vegetation. And the owner has not historically needed a boathouse, and I understand she shattered her leg, and yet I'm like thinking, how much does a thing like this cost? And couldn't she hire somebody just to bring the boat out? Because I would think it would be quite a bit to throw something like this together. And you hadn't mentioned thievery before. That I don't, you know, that surprised me just now. And are there any? I was just wondering, are there any like boat houses? If someone wants a boathouse, what would be the basis for opposing a boathouse? You know, can anybody have a boathouse? Well, no, boathouse is, you know, off limits. We have to approve it. And what are the conditions to, you know, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. And then in reading the text for it, it said, you know, grading facilities the grading will facilitate vegetative growth, and quote, thus complying with the requirements of 310 CMR, ... And I'm thinking, grading, as long as you have grading, that's going to be fine. I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. Do we have limits on boathouses? How do we do that? That's just my initial reaction.
Thanks, Bill. John?
Thank you, Tom. I have to say, and Darcy helped me out here, I remember all the years I've been involved in the commission, I don't ever remember approving a new boathouse right against the water. You know, we have grandfather, where there's a grandfather situation, and they had to do a rebuild within the same footprint, et cetera. We've approved those because they are grandfathered. I don't ever remember having approved something like this in my time. It is clearly within the 50-foot bill. And, you know, our desire is to protect that 50-foot, the 0 to 50. And I empathize. I met with the homeowner, and she was telling me about her accident and with her leg. There is a road there. It's a pretty long road, but, you know, we have allowed like a little specially designed little cart, electric cart that can be used to tow the boat up and down. I think that is a far better alternative than us establishing a precedent of allowing boathouses. And if we say yes to this one, how do we say no to the next 20 or 30 that come along? So I'm concerned with that.
Thanks, John. George?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Just in reading the regs that Darcy was nice enough to forward on to us today, you know, it seems to be a right that they have, you know, they have a right to do this. The only other question I had was, do we need elevations on this too, Tom?
We don't have the elevations. It will be one of the requirements to have the elevation, because we don't even know the elevations per se at this point. The drawing doesn't show.
Right. So, but I mean, I really don't, personally, I understand we want to keep the 50s clean as possible. but under the regs, I don't know how we can deny this.
Thanks, George. Louise? Oh, Darcy?
I was just going to mention, yeah, I believe the commission has permitted water dependent structures, and I didn't have a chance to look up the addresses, but there was one going out, I thought it was on the way out towards Lee Remick's house. I might have the wrong
Actually, there is one that was right. It's only, and it was a while ago, but I did it. It was down about, well, you know, the property where we had the questions on, it's right like 4 properties or 5 properties to the south of this property. And there is a boathouse there that is on piles, that was approved because I did it a number of years ago. But so there has been approvals for these things.
I'm recalling the one that the large piers across the road, and I can remember the application because they had like a place to store stuff, water dependent items, and they wanted to actually build a beach. And we spent a lot of time on the issue of bringing in sand where the lawn area was, but I remember that one.
You remember the one that where we had the questions on the coastal bank, whether it was a coastal bank or not?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. The boathouse that you're talking about.
Yes,
okay.
That's the one I'm talking about.
And then we just, was it Fox Island or Fox Road? I know, I can remember the other one with the green lawn, and we had the large stepping stones. We were talking to Chuck about could they reduce the size of the steppers going down. There was a boathouse there that water dependent, and we were concerned more about having 2 entrances going up into this boathouse. What was the need for that? So I have seen water dependent structures approved.
Thank you, Darcy. Louise?
Well, maybe I'm taking phrases out of context, but when they talk about in the definitions of water dependent facilities, which says are approvable. It says examples of water dependence facilities includes ports, marinas, community piers, public beaches, recreational areas and fisheries, residences, restaurants, restrooms, and concession stands are not water dependent. I would view this as a residence, part of a residence. So the examples that you give are interesting. I'd want to have more details about exactly where they were relative to the 50-foot buffer and to the resource area. But this would say to me that this is not a water dependent structure that we're talking about.
Tom, if I might respond to Louise.
Sure, go ahead.
So water dependent structures, as defined in your regulations, are any structure or works associated with water dependent industry, maritime, recreational, educational, or fisheries activities. So this is private recreational maritime activity. The definition of water dependent facility in 13140 or its regulations relates to things that require Chapter 91 licenses, and provided that those things meet the other regulations. That is, if they're built on a beach, they have to meet the regulations for not significantly impacting a beach. The same is true if they were on a marsh or if they hung out over the water. So that there is no prohibition in 13140 and its regulations for construction or alterations in the 50-foot buffer, so long as they meet the design specifications for the resource area that they're in or adjoin. My recollection of how the exemption got into the mitigation regulations was specifically discussions about boathouses, in addition to the issue of not requiring mitigation for marinas and that sort of thing. In response a little bit to Bill.
Or could I just kind of respond to what you just said? What you read about during the definition of water dependent facility, basically, I mean, it was the preceding section before the part that I read. So if you would keep reading, it would say, you would have seen or said that residences are not water dependent.
That's right, but this is not a residence, Louise. Unlike a lot of the boathouses in quotes that are scattered around town that have turned into places to sit and have a drink or maybe a bunkhouse. This really is only for boat storage.
I see.
Not a place to have a drink, although there is, my understanding, a water service to wash down the boats that runs out to the pier. There are no sanitary facilities, not a wash basin or anything that's proposed inside this building.
Well, when you talk about Chapter 91 being required if it is on a beach, part of this array is on the beach, right? The grading and ramp and so forth. So,
and the reason that we've used that reinforced grading material is to meet the requirements of the regulations for alterations on the beach, which say you are not supposed to alter the volume, form, or vegetative cover of a beach area. And the purpose of that grading material is to distribute the weight of the boat that's being hauled and the people that are doing that work, so that they don't make divots in or tracks in the beach, and so that the vegetation can grow up through it. In the notice of intent, we provided a couple of photographs, or at least one photograph, of a site in Katuitt proper. And I think George was involved in that project as well, for Mrs. Eastman, where we used a piece of that grading at the water edge, and the salt marsh and the beach grass grow right up through the grading, and she uses that to pull her dinghy up onto the beach, and her kayaks, and then the kayaks go in a rack. But so that is the intent of having that material at that location.
But you wouldn't need to have that material, because if there weren't an issue created by the fact that you've got this facility just beyond it, just landward of it, I mean, it wouldn't be an issue otherwise, right?
They haul that boat out on a dolly now. And if that operation occurs either frequently or when the material is soft, it will create divots, and it will disturb the grass vegetation.
Except it didn't appear to be disturbed, particularly when I made my visit. I didn't notice anything. It wasn't obvious. It may have been there, but I didn't notice it.
So,
Louis, are you all set?
Yeah.
Let me go to Larry.
I am sorting out a variety of issues here. Bill, I want to go back to you for just a minute. The concept of boathouses can really be, and George, you can clarify this if you'd like, two types or two customary uses. One is the type of a boathouse where you can, it's like a garage. You can bring the boat into the boathouse in water, and sometimes you can lift it or hoist it. Sometimes you have a boathouse that's just for storage. That's what this one is. This one is not a routine. This is when the boat is no longer in use in the winter or whatever. Also, the boathouse, this proposes to use the boathouse for storage of, let us say, boat-related equipment, whether it be oars or sails or cushions, whatever. But it's just to protect or safeguard those items from destruction, loss, thievery, whatever you want to call it. But that could be secured with a padlock, and that takes care of it. So there's two types of boathouses we're dealing with. I do agree with George's suggestion that there be elevations, and that may be somewhat dispositive of any concerns about the ground itself. Looking at that property, there's minimal vegetation in that area anyway. And so this is not going to be somehow impeding on that. The other issue is that there are two sailboats involved. Can only be one in there at a time unless somehow you created a double-decker situation, which I think is not what's being asked for. So whether one of the boats stays in there and the other is located elsewhere is up to Pam Randon's choice. The other question that concerns me, and I've noticed this off and on in recent weeks, maybe longer, that sometimes we seem to have a tendency to try to either modify or reinterpret what a regulation is supposed to say, just because we want it to say that. This regulation doesn't say that. There's a clear exception under 704-6 for boathouses not to require mitigation. And in reviewing the prior hearings on this 11 years ago, Wayne Kirker and others came forward and advocated for boat-related facilities to have exceptions. Those facilities were not necessarily limited to large marinas. There wasn't a clear distinction, and they were presumed to be something that covered a boat or water-related or water-dependent structure. So I think if we were to somehow decide or read something else into the regulation, that's a great avenue being open for litigation, and I'd like to see that litigated. But in this particular case, our regulation doesn't allow us to modify its terms in midstream to say what we want it to say. It's pretty clear what this regulation says, and Arlene has crafted this entire application to coincide with what the regulation says. So I see that the risk of going out and trying to come up with a new way of looking at it, you do it at your own risk, but I wouldn't advocate it.
Bill? Yeah, I don't advocate going out on any limbs regarding the 704. The water dependent facility, I mean, you can argue it both ways. Louise is arguing that it isn't a water dependent. My take on it is that it probably is a water dependent facility. But that is in the definition. That is 7042. And that's in there along with what's a 50-foot buffer, what's hardscape, and what's a water dependent facility. And it just simply says that is what a water dependent facility is. It doesn't say that, well, we have to approve it. And I may have maybe, I don't know. George, when George was earlier speaking, I was a little concerned. It almost sounded like he said, well, the regs basically say that we have to approve it because the regs cover it and that's got to be approved. And I didn't interpret it that way. If it's a water dependent facility, you go to the 704, is it 6, and it says you can't have mitigation. And I buy that. Okay, you can't do the 3-to-1, the 4-to-1. It's just like no mitigation if you approve it. So again, Larry, I don't think we're trying to say that we're challenging the bylaw relative to mitigation. It becomes a question of 704.6. This regulation shall not be construed to preclude the following activities, any of which may be permitted at the commission's discretion, comma, and then it says, and you can't mitigate. So we can or we cannot approve it. And as one who's interested in trying to maintain the 50-foot buffer and the vegetation and the shoreline and yada, yada, I'm thinking this is not a good idea. And in terms of precedence on boathouses, it's kind of like, does this mean, I mean, as I said earlier, is there any boathouse that can be rejected? I mean, we have to do that? And I think, no, we must have some discretion. And I feel like this seems like a situation where you don't have to. There can be alternatives. So I'm not thinking we're going to be trying to challenge any of our bylaw. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I don't think we, like Bill said, I don't think we are challenging the bylaws, Chapter 704. I think if you look back on the history, right, just like John said, we are very cautious about approving any new boathouse in the area. And yes, we always look at that as if you are restoring an existing structures, yeah, we will allow it, but we are not allowing for expand use. So we are cautious in terms of approving any new boathouse. We don't have to approve it if we think that it's not appropriate in this area, because I'm worried also too for the president. Once we set this one, then it will come a floodgate, open up. So I'll be cautious in terms of looking at these applications. Any other question from the commissioner? I think one of the things that, Arlene, you should look at what the alternative. I think John kind of mentioned about, whether you have another ways of moving the boat to the upland side, whether that kind of alternative has been looked at, from the owner standpoint. I think we need to kind of looking at that as well. So,
excuse me, Tom.
Yeah, Marcy,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify. I was able to look up the one that I thought we had a discussion on water dependent facility. I thought it was 265 C Pewitt Road. That was a big tear down of a home, and then they rebuilt a large home. In one of the buildings that was associated off of that, I don't know if it was a pool or a patio area. I thought for sure we had some discussion on water dependent use, but I measured off of Arc Reader. That was like 65, 70 feet from the water. It wasn't right on the edge of the water. So I just wanted to clarify that this is, when I was saying one of them, this is not right on the water.
Right.
The other one, we'd have to get the address. I think everybody remembered that one with the I can't remember the name of it now, but the steps going down the large lawn area. And we were talking about the structure down under the pine trees there.
But if I remember right, I think that's much further upland.
Yeah, it wasn't with a ramp going down into the water, but it was in the 50-foot.
Right. Luis?
I just wanted to follow up on something. Larry had mentioned that he envisioned 2 uses for this boathouse. One of them, I think he said, was for winter storage, and the other one was for day to day. I envision, based on what I read in the narrative, that this is day to day. If we're talking about winter storage, I mean, anybody who has a boat holds it from the water. If it's of any size, it's done by a truck and trailer for the winter, and then the truck comes and returns the big boat to the water. So I would think that regardless of hardship, that would be a pretty easy thing to orchestrate and pretty reasonable to execute without a boathouse. That a truck would just come down to the water in the fall, pick it up, or pick the two boats up in the reverse in the spring. So, Arlene, am I correct that this is not for winter storage? This is for day-to-day recreation kind of stuff?
Yeah, this is for in-season storage and maintenance. So, for instance, if there was a storm predicted, they might want to put one of the boats in here to give it some additional protection. These are sailboats, not motorboats. They're not as heavy. I know, for instance, the Laser, my grandson sails a Laser, and he and his mother picked that boat up and put it on top of her car to move around. They are both in excellent physical condition, however, and not in danger of fracturing a bone when they do it. The catboat is somewhat heavier than the Laser is and harder to move around, but it's a different kind of use and maintenance than it is on a motorboat.
So have you considered, looked into whatever alternatives to get this boat up and away from the resource area rather than a structure like a boathouse?
Well, they, I suppose that they can essentially hook a trailer to the car, back the car down that road, and pull the boat on the trailer. It'll make a pretty bad mess out of the beach, and there is not unlimited parking or storage space up at the house here. So, is this a convenience? Yes. Does it meet the regulations? I believe it does. And the issue here is whether there is going to be a significant adverse environmental impact from the request. I believe that the way the project has been designed, there is not going to be. Bill talked about how narrow these properties are. There is approximately 70 feet across this property at the high water line. The boathouse, including that side deck, is only 14 feet wide. Boathouses at or near the water's edge are a historic use in this area. At one time, there were dozens and dozens of them. There are a number of them up and down the shoreline now. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. My understanding is that there is one that was permitted relatively recently, a few doors down from this. And I can get you the information on that boathouse. That's an entirely new one, as I believe I was told. And historically, it's my understanding that there actually was a boathouse on the shore frontage. I haven't seen the records, that's anecdotal, but that's my understanding. The ability to have a place to, like this, to store the boat and secure it so that it's safe and the masts and gear are safe is, as was noted, akin to a garage. I remember years and years ago, I think John may have been on the commission then, having the discussion about whether anybody needed a 3-car garage. And that was brought up by one of the commissioners who is no longer with us, Liz Clark. And the issue, as I think people actually decided in general, in accordance with the regulations and the statutes, is not whether anybody needs anything, but whether it's going to have a significant adverse impact. And here, I think, in particular, having that graded reinforced path along the beach to haul on is an environmental benefit that's not there now. And to the extent that they continue to pull those boats up across this beach, it's possible to have some significant damage. They don't want to do that. In addition to it being a convenience, but it's a convenience that doesn't have a significant adverse impact.
Thank you, Arlene. Larry, your hands up. No?
It was left up, Tom, from before. It just never, I'll pull it back down. It's gone now.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Tom. It's an interesting way Larry reads the regulation. Larry, I'm sure you know you don't read one clause and rely solely on that. Other clauses within that same regulation talk about cumulative impact, which is something we have to consider. In this particular situation, we walked the property, met with the owner, understand her need and her desire for this convenience. There are significant options that I think should be considered, as Tom mentioned. She has a road there. There was one in Craigville Beach where the homeowner couldn't walk, and we allowed literally a motorized beach buggy for that person to get down to the beach and come back. Here I can see where a little motorized dolly or something could easily meet the homeowner's need. I worry that if we say, and by the way, I agree with Bill, that the fact that it's a water-dependent facility does not mean that we are required to approve it. Because if you read the regulation as a whole, Larry, I'm sure you'd agree. I worry that if we approve this, where there are significant available options to be considered, where we then open it up to literally allowing boathouses along the entire waterfront within Barnstable. So that cumulative impact, I think, is a significant concern for me, especially, and I'll repeat it, where I believe in this particular property, there are options, viable options that should be considered. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other comment from the commissioner?
Yeah, let me respond briefly to John. John, I wasn't isolating this. I think that the question was clearly set forth that the section 704-6 really ties more to mitigation. So let us assume for the moment that mitigation is not required. And then the question is, what other ways are looking at this? I do agree that options could be considered. I don't think they have to be, but that's up to the applicant. If they want to consider options, then we're back to almost what we did at 49 Main Street, where we considered options, and look what a constructive dialogue it created. In this particular case, my concern was, and John, sometimes you can look at an isolated provision or look at a provision in isolation, or it's the whole thing. The cumulative impacts, and as well as, for instance, the expansion of use, which is a little less clear, those can all be considered. But in this particular case, the cumulative impacts, the way you rephrased it, John, would be what you fear might happen in the future. that if we permit this and all of a sudden we're going to have a housing development along the shoreline. I don't think that'll happen, but I think here we've thrown a lot of issues out there with different points of view, and I don't know where we go with it right now, but I did not intentionally limit an interpretation of 704. I just tried to look at the way in which that regulation applies to the application. And so in that sense, it doesn't mean that the majority is going to lean in that direction. Who knows where it's going to go with this commission? There could be 7 of us and get 14 different interpretations. But that being said,
you can only get 7 votes. And I wasn't addressing the mitigation part of it.
No, I know you weren't. I know you weren't. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that we've aired a lot of issues here, and I think the question becomes where we go with it now. And that's, I don't think there's any, whether we keep discussing it is fine with me, but that's the way I see it.
No, I think there is a lot of question out there. I think that, I'm looking for some answers in terms of whether the homeowner or Arlene would need to discuss with the homeowner what other options in terms of alternative-wise to be considered and whether that's feasible or not. And we need the elevation view of the proposed boathouse. And we probably definitely look at the other existing boathouse as far as how we permitting it. I think those information is important for us to make up our decision on these applications. So,
excuse me, Tom.
Yes, Darcy.
I was able to find the address. It was 50 Fox Island Road, Marston's Mills, under the name White. There was a boat shed that was approved.
Yeah. Darcy, if we continue this, it would be very helpful for you to refresh us or show us that or go, send us that application.
Will do.
Also, I think, Darcy, the one that's on Eel River Road
okay.
Would be helpful too. And that was probably approved in the, must have been in the late 90s.
Okay.
Maybe early 2000s.
Tom, I got to respond to one other thing for Arlene. Liz Clark predates even me. As old as I am, that predates me. She predates.
Am I the only one around here?
Yeah. I remember Liz very, very well. I remember Liz very well.
I was still working. I was working back then. I'm still here.
Actually, I was an applicant at one time when she was on the commission. I was not a commissioner. I'm not that old.
Thanks.
Let me go to the public comment first, and then we'll come back and look at the continuance date. Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Nobody that's identified themselves.
Thank you, Dave. Arlene, how about August the 30th?
So I think we need to ask for a continuance. I don't know, the first meeting in September.
The first meeting in September is the 13th.
Okay. That's the first one? Oh, because the very first one is
afternoon hearing.
Yeah. So I can't make the 13th. What's the last one in September?
27.
Let's try that. And before we stop this conversation, if we're going to do a cumulative impact analysis, the commission is supposed to give me some guidance about what the neighborhood is that I'm supposed to look at for that. So how far afield am I going here? Is it the shore of South Bay?
Yeah, I think obviously, to me, obviously you're looking at the south, not the north side, you're looking at the south side. This is in that West Bay area, isn't it? Or what is this? Is this
they call this South Bay.
Yeah. Oh, they do call it South Bay. Yeah. Calling it West Bay. I would certainly think that I would look at a minimum in the West Bay area. I think would be reasonable. I mean, what do you think, Arlene?
But on the drawing, it kind of labeled as a West Bay.
It's known both ways.
Well,
depends on who you ask.
For Weebo, I usually call it West Bay, but I think we're talking the same area.
Okay, so the area south of the Oyster Harbor's Bridge, but north of Eel River proper.
George, that would make sense. I think it's pretty.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Yep. So it's the September 27, right?
Yeah.
Could I have a motion to continue this to September the 27th?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Moran.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. We'll see you on the September the 27th. If you can provide the analysis maybe the week before so that we have a chance to look at that.
We'll do the best we can, Tom. I'm actually I'll try and get it to you before because I'm unavailable on the 13th because I'm having some hip surgery the day before. So.
Oh, sorry to hear about that. Good luck for that.
Good luck, Arlene.
Good luck, Arlene.
The second NOI is Stephen Cohen, 209 Bay LLC, proposed invasive species management to include Phacmydes at 209 Bay Street, Osterville, as shown in the Assessors Map 117, Parcel 158. John, you?
You got me today, Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering Consulting.
Okay.
I don't see the share screen.
Hey, Chuck, would you take a second to help me? Because this is an ecological restoration proposed project, right? Would you just define that for us using your expertise? That would help me as we talk through this. Thank you.
So the proposed activity is eligible to be treated as an ecological restoration limited project. I can't remember exactly what the area is, but over a certain area, you need to be filing it as an ecological restoration project, which essentially just means it's a second set of paperwork that you have to submit to the state, very similar to a notice of intent. And it's just saying that we're going to be doing a bunch of work to the wetland area.
But is there a different standard of review for this Conservation Commission, for example, because it is defined as an ecological restoration project? Is there a different standard of review?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I think that Jeremy and Katrine are here with Wilkinson Ecological Design, and they're kind of the experts on this, in my opinion, if they want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to that. Jeremy Schaub from Wilkinson Ecological Design. And as Chuck had said, there's some square footage triggers. This type of restoration projects, if it's anything over 5,000 square feet of vegetation work in a bordering vegetated wetland, we got looped into some larger projects, dam removals and things of that nature, anytime we hit that one threshold. To my knowledge, I don't think there's any reason for the commission to view it any differently than any other invasive management project that Wilkinson has done under a typical NOI, but it just does have those extra thresholds and a couple extra and the paperwork that Chuck and John O'Day had put in.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you.
And I can also add to that. So when the state started this, their idea was that this is going to streamline the project. And so with ecological restoration projects for invasive removal, this DEP has allowed the limited project form to be filled out, and that requires them to advertise in the Monitor and also get any approvals or information from NHESP. So they are saying they're streamlining it because they're saying before you can proceed, you need to get those reviews done ahead of time. And it's because they're filing it under the limited project form 3 or whatever, which is like 19 pages of checklists, check off boxes. You don't. We're not. We do not have to issue an ecological restoration order of conditions. We can issue a regular order of conditions.
Okay.
So that's the only difference. They thought they're streamlining it. It's on the front end of it. It's getting streamlined.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. As you explain it, do we need any comment from NHCSP? I'm just curious.
I believe they just had there was a box checked in the form that they need to do.
They were notified. I don't have anything in my file saying that they had comments back, but we're obviously can follow up on that.
Because I have not seen any comment from NHCSP. That's all. I'm just wondering.
So I guess Kim was copied. John was saying, but the division is in receipt of the notice of intent for the ecological restoration project and has determined that the project as currently proposed does not occur within estimated habitat of rare wildlife or priority habitat as indicated in the Mass Heritage Atlas 15 edition. Therefore, the project is not required to be reviewed for compliance with the rare wildlife species section, yada, yada, yada. Best, Emily Holt, Endangered Species Review Assistant at NHESP.
Is that a letter from NHESP?
Yes. Well, it's an email.
Kim, do we have that email, or can you send that email to us so that we have that in the file?
Yeah, I'll look for it. I think I did see it and I did send it out, but I will double check.
Thank you. Chuck, you want to go on to describe your project, or it will be Jeremy?
I can kind of give you a rough overview.
Chuck, if you could just talk about maybe resource areas or anything of that nature, I can dive into the proposed project after that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So does everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure you guys have all been to the site at least more than once at this point. So we got working for 209 BA LLC, and the client is Steve Cohn, who is joining us today. We have about 2.8 acres of land in Osterville, butting Bay Street and North Bay. The site's developed with an existing family dwelling, barn, shed, and cottage. Coastal resources at the site are land under ocean, salt marsh, coastal beach, coastal dune, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. And the site also contains an inland BVW area. And the project as proposed is the management of invasive species within the BVW. The BVW wetland is predominantly overrun by Phragmites, so that's kind of inside these wetland flags. Additional details on the vegetation is contained within the invasive plant management protocol for Phragmites by Wilkinson Ecological. Like I said, it's being filed as an ecological restoration limited project. And the project has been submitted to the environmental monitor, like Darcy said, which was required, as well as Form 3 Appendix A Ecological Limited Project Checklist has been submitted. The project, the proposed invasive species management and restoration will further at least the interest of the protection of the wildlife habitat by diversifying the vegetated cover. And the project will not destroy or impair any portion of the BVW wetland or adjacent salt marsh in accordance with 310 CMR 15.554A. And we foresee no adverse effects on the resources, which is a requirement for the ACEC. We think that the surrounding area has kind of drained into this wetland through the golf course and roads, and has all contributed to the degrading state of the proposed work area. The applicant is attempting to restore these areas that have been degraded or destroyed by I'm terrible pronouncing this, anthropomorphic influences.
And any chemical used will be performed by a fully licensed and insured applicator who will obtain any additional approvals. And so we have Wilkinson with us today who can kind of go into this.
And some more of the details. Sure, thank you, Chuck. Jeremy Schaub, Wilkinson Ecological Design. So Chuck started us off. Our project proposes management of all the invasive species, which the vast majority in that green shaded area you see on the plan being Phragmites, within the bordering of vegetated wetlands, approximately 43,000 square feet or nearly an acre of Phragmites to be managed. This project's a great opportunity because combined with the previously approved invasive management, which you see in that gray hatching there, we will have removed all the invasive plant species and restored native vegetation to the entire resource area and much of the 0 to 50 foot buffer on the property. So for the Phragmites control, as outlined in the protocol, we propose a mow and wipe technique, similar to something if the commissioners who were here when we permitted the frag management around Little Parker's Pond, would be mowing of the dead stalks next season, late winter, early spring, followed up by a second mow to control the height of those Phragmites, so we can then utilize a mechanical weed wiper to do an herbicide treatment directly to the leaves of the Phragmites. Again, we would of course use an herbicide that's approved for use in wetlands. We do have a second protocol that is listed just in case if we end up having a very wet spring and we actually can't get in there with a mower. We also have a bundle cut and wipe protocol that could be used. On Phragmites projects like this, we typically see the existing native plant species along with the native seed bank that's released to quickly revegetate these wetlands. As for example, in this wetland in particular, there are a number of native elderberries which have survived with the Phragmites. Amazingly, it's one of the tougher native woodies that we see do that. For the native shrubs like that, we would propose those would remain. We would, of course, do some regenerative pruning since they've been overcrowded and shaded by the Phragmites to get some better structure and allow them to regrow naturally. By managing the Phragmites, allowing the regrowth of the native shrubs, germination of the existing seed bank, which we would likely expect to be sedges, rushes, many other native grasses, blue vervain, hibiscus. We would expect this wetland to become not only aesthetically beautiful, but also provide increased biodiversity and additional wildlife benefits, far more than the current conditions. I will leave it at that and open it up if the commissioners have any questions.
I just wanted to add that this project, although it's not tied to, we filed it at the same time as the amended order that's following to kind of show some of our goodwill. But besides that, I think we should send it to commissioners.
That NHESP letter did come in from Leah on August 5th, and I forwarded it to the commissioners around 10:30 in the morning. I guess it was originally sent to Dartmouth Conservation instead of Barnstable Conservation. That's why we didn't get it directly from them, but we did get it from Leah.
Thank you, Kim. Before I go to the commission, a couple of things I just want to mention. This is a quick comment. One, I think on this application, we need that wetland delineation information on this plan. And then secondly, if you look at the engineering plan from the amended order, there is a pond close to the property line and on the south. And I think that pond should be showing on your plan as well. So, Louise?
I really like your plan of letting the natives grow back rather than doing a lot of replanting and seeding of other stuff. When I was there, I saw a lot of poison ivy, and poison ivy is an invasive, but it is a native plant, I believe. So are you prepared? The applicant prepared for poison ivy coming back in there, or what's the plan?
On our protocol, we do list species like poison ivy, native grape, and other native vines, which can be a bit aggressive when you open up a wetland like this and now they suddenly have sun. We would also propose those to be managed, but we wouldn't propose eradication of them, just to allow that open ground for all that native seed bank and the native shrubs to grow. We would only specifically go after poison ivy next to the existing path where somebody might be walking by to keep it out of there. But for the whole wetland, it would just be that targeted treatment of those aggressive native vines to keep them at bay, to allow the other natives to become established.
Okay, so you're not strictly allowing growback of native plants?
We would. Everything in there would be allowed to grow, but as I said, sometimes Virginia creeper or native grape can sometimes overwhelm and become a monoculture. We would just selectively cut back some of those species to allow the other native grasses and shrubs to grow. They tend to take a little bit longer to establish than the aggressive native vines do.
Okay, so you are managing it.
It would be something that we would partially manage, but we wouldn't be planning to eradicate it like we would the invasive Phragmites.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Luis. Any other question from the commissioner?
Excuse me, Tom?
Darcy?
Yes, thank you. I would just add, we would want for a special condition, not only that we're understand that Wilkinson would be the consultant, any change in consultant would need a prior approval from the administrator, but also any change in consultant, we would only consider somebody that is a CERT qualified, as this work is so close to the salt marsh.
Because I think the proper term would be certified as an ecological restoration professional.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
The other condition that I have on my list is the annual report for 3 years, and let me see here. Oh, one of the conditions that in your write-up you're asking for an ongoing minimum maintenance to control Phragmite invasive and aggressive native planting. Is that what you're looking for in terms of the aggressive native planting? In terms of the vine, in terms of the other plants?
That would be the proposal, yes, to manage those aggressive native vines in the initial establishment phase.
Okay. Any question from the commissioner? Seeing none here. Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Neighbor Colleen Baselli is here listening. Not sure if, Colleen, if you have anything you'd like to add or ask.
Question I have, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask, but I mean, I'll put it out there. What I don't know, and I should, is whether these Phragmites are also on our property. Because we're new homeowners here. If they are, then I'm assuming we would come back to the commission and ask for similar permission in the future. Does that make sense?
This is only, correct me if I'm wrong, this application is only on his property, only.
Yes.
The application is, but if the Phragmites are also on our property, which I don't know, and I should, but I don't, am I correct in assuming I'll come back and apply for a similar?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. If you saw the performance of this and see, oh yeah, this is what I want, then you have to come back with an application on your property.
All right. This is fantastic. So okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Tom. I don't know if Kim got the address.
I got her name. I just need her address.
183 Bay Street.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Channel 18, any more public comment on this?
I believe that's it.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to receipt of a revised plan showing the existing pond, the wetland delineation informations, We will need the annual report for 3 years, a written notifications to the conservation if there is a change of the contractor. That should have these that should be certified ecological restoration professional, and allowing an ongoing minimum maintenance to control Phragmites invasive and aggressive native plantings throughout this order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Hearn.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Moran.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster.
Aye.
Gabadili.
Aye.
That is unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, nice plan. The next one is the amended order 209 Bay LLC request to amend order conditions to allow additional fencing, a pathway to include a walkway area, and to modify the approved Vista corridor and parking area at 209 Bay Street, Austerville, as shown on the Assessors Map 117, Parcel 158. Is it Chuck or John?
To me again, Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I have before you the same property, 209 Bay Street in Austerville, representing 209 Bay Street Bay LLC. We have an amended order request. So, like Tom had said, we're requesting allowing a fencing which runs along Bay Street right here, due to the vicinity to the boat ramp and a lot of pedestrian access. Keeping a little privacy as well as keeping people from wandering off through his property. So it's just a split rail fence, which will not be inhibiting any animal traffic in the area. We're also requesting a pathway to include a walkway and sitting area, which is down over here, connected to the approved path to the pier. So this is this area right here with the sitting area. And to modify the approved Vista corridor and parking area. So I'll just show you quickly. This is the proposed kind of gravel parking area, and then the requested expansion of the Vista corridor. So this part of the Vista corridor right here is kind of blocked by another grove of trees. So we're requesting to expand the Vista corridor just this little bit, move these 3 trees over here, and so that way we can actually have an actual vista of the water, because it's actually not quite as clear as one would think. And I will show the photos. Is it whiteboard, John?
No, it's in it. I think if you're still on, if you're on that, you keep showing the plan, then I think you can, it's like gets hidden behind.
There. So this is the approved Vista corridor area right here, and this is the widened Vista corridor, and so we're asking to move these 3 cedars. And then,
can you rotate a photo or not?
I don't think I can rotate that one. Let's see here. Oh, you're in luck. So this is the approved Vista corridor, and this is the area that we're asking to widen.
So are you taking down that one big tree or moving that as well?
No. We're not going to touch that. Well, it's in the Vista corridor, but we're not moving or removing this big one. It's just those 3 cedars right here. And so this is the approved Vista, and this is the widened Vista with one of the cedars. Same thing. And then this is the Vista corridor looking out with all the cedars. You can't really see anything. And obviously with the large large bushes there as well. And then this is looking in, so this these cedars right here are the ones that we're asking to have removed. And so this big tree is right in the way of the Vista corridor, which, you know, we don't want to be, you know, going beyond our approval to have any kind of vista to see there. And those cedars off to the right kind of block the rest of the view. So this is actually the vista past where those others are. So those cedars are actually right here, which are we're not asking to cut or remove those. So you'd think that we have a big expansive vista right here, but it's actually blocked by these other cedars right here. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Question from the commissioner.
Yeah.
John?
Yes. If you could go back to the full view.
Sure.
Check. Couple of questions. When I was out there today walking, obviously it's a massive project, massive home site, great big, you know, geographical area. The views, as I tried to stand on the porch, was mostly blocked off, but the views from that patio area that they were working on, it seemed pretty good. But then when you wanted to remove the 3 cedar trees, can you, or and maybe the folks from Wilkins can answer this, can you literally dig those up and replant them and keep them alive? Or are you going to have a problem with that? That was the first question. The second question, you know, and you're going to need equipment to get in there and do that. I assume some big machines to dig those out. So kind of would address that issue. The other one is when you've got proposed path down by the pier, and then you've got something called a proposed walkway back to a proposed path. I'm not quite sure what all of that is and what the walkway is that you've got on the plan. And then you need to describe the proposed sitting area. It's not something, again, I can't remember us generally approving sitting areas within the 50-foot buffer. You know, maybe it's an exception in this property because of its nature, but it's a concern that I would have. So those are the 3 areas. One, if you picked up those cedars, how are you going to get them out? How are you going to move them? Can you replant them successfully without losing them? Secondly, if you could describe what you meant by proposed walkway. And thirdly, better define what you call a sitting area. You're talking about a cement base or chairs or patio for, what are you talking about?
Sure, if you don't mind,
the dimensions of it.
I'm happy to answer some of those questions now. So
Thanks.
We have these 3 cedar trees. From watching Johnson Tree Farm moving trees, I don't see why this can't get moved with a spade and placed over here. Obviously that will take some equipment, but I don't see why that's not possible to be done with probably, you know, mid-size equipment. We are proposing. Right? Say it again.
You can get it in there, Chuck. You can get your equipment into where those 3 cedars are without doing more damage.
I mean, I don't foresee it taking, you know, even if it takes like a small track machine to do it, I don't think those track machines really cause too much damage to the ground, you know, for like, you know, temporary impacts. And, you know, it's going to be up to the contractor that does it. But, you know, if need be, I'm happy to have something like wanting to have matting included in the order.
Probably, if we went with this, I could see, Tom, where we'd want to put certain conditions, you know, that any damage caused by the removal of the trees or relocation would have to be repaired, probably a prior meeting with staff to go over the protocol for doing that. Some kind of conditions on the longevity of those trees once they're replanted, a monitoring of those if we go ahead with this. So go ahead, Chuck.
I think that was kind of all expected, at least on our end. The client's here if he wants to chime in at all at any point, but We're just requesting a natural proposed path as well as another small path area here. In my mind, we had, you know, a typical like park bench type thing right here. I was not foreseeing concrete or, you know, anything that needed, you know, excavation or anything like that, but just a bench. And I wanted to make sure it was clearly noted on the plan.
Okay.
A small sitting area and a
Chuck,
walkway.
And what is the walkway where it says proposed walkway? Excuse me, I just want to run that final question. What does it mean walkway as opposed to path?
So it gets wet right here. And so it would be probably like, you know, boards to actually go across. So it would be an actual walkway over the you know, the salt marsh or the drainage ditch.
Okay. It would just seem to me that if the commission approved this, you'd really need to submit a revised plan specifying exactly what it was, the width of the path, the length of the path, what the seating area is, et cetera. I would think all of that would need to be spelled out on the plan if this is otherwise approved.
Because the other thing that you need to show is, you know, when you have a walkway, how high is from the ground and so forth. At the time when I went out to the site visit, it was low tide, so I didn't see anything in terms of in the area.
I couldn't find it either, Tom, and I tried to find where that walkway would be and had some trouble kind of defining that exact location. So.
Yeah, when I staked it, it's pretty far in some, you know, overgrown stuff, mostly Phragmites, but, you know, unless you kind of have good bearings in the area.
You really need to, but you need to define what that path, you need to define what kind of vegetation we're going to lose, what the path is going to look like, natural path, walking, you know, et cetera. All of that, I think, would have to be spelled out if you got an okay on this.
Right.
If I could comment just a little, Stephen Cohen, I'm the homeowner. Most of that path area is currently Phragmites. There's very little native vegetation in that area. The part that would be essentially a bridge over the ditch, I'd be totally satisfied with the most environmentally sensitive, like fiber grate or, you know, whatever. We just want to be able to get over the ditch with, you know, safely. So it doesn't, but we don't want to interfere with the natural flow of the water or the animals or the plants or anything like that. And then in terms of the seating area, I don't foresee, you know, it's just so that pond is so beautiful there. It'd be nice to have a bench, but I don't see anything with any cement platform or anything, you know, attached to the ground. Just a park bench, something similar. So I'd be happy with conditions that kept it to the most minimal, like I've described, or you know, whatever the commission determined was appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Louise.
Looking at the well, first of all, when I made my visit, looking down toward the water, it struck me that once those Phragmites are eliminated, that's going to open up the view a lot. So that's just an observation. If I look at the plan showing that the Vista corridor is actually kind of blocked by those cedar trees that are remaining, which I think Darcy just, or maybe it was Chuck, was circled. They're staying, and it was said that they're going to block the view there. Why wouldn't you just move the swing that northern edge in? You're expanding it, kind of swinging it to the south, so why not bring the other one, the northern part of that corridor in, so that it just avoids those cedar trees that you're going to keep anyway. Therefore, there's no confusion about whether or not in the future those cedar trees are going to have to be touched at all. So I'd like to see that Vista corridor brought in from the top, seeing as how we're swinging it out toward the bottom, if I'm clear. The other thing is, I don't specifically remember this existing cedar grove as being especially magnificent, and maybe it's just a better shot at having everything survive and growing beautifully if they end up getting replaced. There are a lot of really mature bushes and trees that are going in anyway, and maybe just continue that in replacing those 3 cedar trees that you want to eliminate.
So this, a lot of this area, there's actually a bunch of other vegetation in this area as well that kind of blocks any vista corridor if we were to shift it up.
No, I would shift it down.
Shift it down.
So shift it down.
Yeah, so that those 3, or is it, I guess it's just 2 cedar trees that you were saying you were going to leave, so that they are outside the corridor, just outside the corridor. You're expanding it in one direction, compressing in the other is what I would suggest.
We'd like to be able to keep
understanding later on about what's in and what's out.
Yeah, I mean, we would like to be able to keep this large oak tree as part of the vista corridor, in the vista corridor, so we could vista prune it.
Where can I see the plan then? Where is that relative to the boundary?
Right here.
Oh, well, it just seems to me that.
I mean, I understand, but I think that, you know, when you kind of zoom way out, we're asking, you know, this is our approved vista corridor, and this is what we're asking for.
Yeah,
and there's like a pretty wide property, so I don't think that in the grand scheme of things we're asking for a whole lot. I think we're attempting to relocate, and obviously if they don't survive, they'll be replanted with full mature cedars. So the area is very well vegetated, and it will continue to be very well vegetated.
But you're going to put those 3 cedar trees that you're taking out, you're going to either replace them or move them. So that's just going to contribute to the vegetation where that oak tree is, right?
Yeah, so it's outside of the vista corridor that we have here. These are outside of that, yep.
Right. Bill?
Yeah, I guess my concern is the sitting area and the path that's going through there that looks like sort of like a boardwalk or what have you. And I don't have a sense as to how big that sitting area is. I hear just a park bench, but still, if you're having all of this vista clearing, you know, you're going to have an ability to enjoy the marsh. You're going through all of this work to try to create a natural marsh, natural conditions, and do you need to basically be putting in artificial path with a boardwalk through the wetland, a wetland that's going to be potentially rising over time? I guess, I think I'm good with a vista clearing, but not just wanting to somehow not have that sitting area with the boardwalk path.
Thank you, Bill. George?
Yes, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I remember the sitting area that we approved at Rushy Marsh Farm. Yeah. And that was, I mean, way, way, way beyond this, way more extensive. And I see this as a very minimal thing. I can see why the owner would like to overlook that pond there. And I don't have a problem with that.
So one additional, actually 2 things I want to mention. One, as far as the wetland delineation on this one, I think Chuck, you have the information for this, right? So you can apply those notes onto the drawing. And then secondly, the question I have though, as you walk down that path that you're going down there, there's almost like a 10-foot wide path. I know you have a lot of construction going on there. After your construction is finished, do you think that you can narrow that path down to 4 feet wide?
I do not have authorization to approve that, but
I thought we already approved that on the original way back. Didn't we approve that, Chuck, earlier in these?
This is the width right here.
Chuck, the plantings that have been done are the screening plantings. We would intend to underplant those to narrow the path with native species.
Okay.
Thank you.
You.
John, the only reason that I mentioned that is I was asking Darcy to check on the old previous approved plan. It did not show up. So,
okay. All right, thanks.
That's why I just wanted to clarify. Yes, Darcy.
Chuck, I'm sorry, could you bring down the plan and zoom in where the proposed bench is going to go?
Sure.
So, yeah, I personally would like to see some more detail there. As other commissioners mentioned, you have the bench. It looks like if you have B5 and B6, is that the bordering vegetated wetland? Or I don't even know what kind of plant is currently there, if it's all Phragmites, or if Wilkinson was going to be treating there, what's going to be going back, and there's no dimensions. Like if you just have a bench, is it just the bench? But I've just never seen one like right in the wetland.
We're happy to pull it out of the wetlands into the the path area. If that makes it easier for the commission to approve.
I think you just need a lot more detail.
Yeah, I'm just confused looking at this. It looks like it comes down and then you have a large, I can't tell what's happening with the path after you get off the boardwalk. All of a sudden
it didn't fit on the plan. I'm happy to provide, a detailed area of that, a detailed zoomed in drawing of that dimension.
Okay, it looks like you have a big triangular area that you want to have.
Yeah, right in where the cloud is for the proposed path.
Yeah, yep. I don't understand all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'd feel better if you know that you're getting the bench out of the wetland and just kind of addressing in the future for ongoing what is going to be growing in between the bench and the pond, and is that going to have to be maintained? Because I don't know what's going back there. If they treat the Phragmites and they're trying to get something to go back, what's going to be going back there? I personally like some more detail on this.
Sure.
One thing I just want to flow it out there, as Darcy was talking about, with your previous NOI, we just approve it with the Phragmite removal and all those stuff. Whether you want to kind of delaying this portion until you see some vegetation going and see how you're going, then you come back and propose this. Is that a fair?
I think that obviously I don't think that we're going to get an approval tonight if we're going to go to vote. So I think that our only option would be a continuance of some sort, and I would much rather do a continuance and get some more detail to you guys than extend it way out. Obviously, my client is here, so he can comment as well.
I like that idea.
So if you're doing the revised plan, make sure that you show the dimension of the seating area, whether it's a bench, you make sure that your label is right, and your proposed path, how wide is it, not a triangle piece, or what kind of a detail cross section wise for the proposed walkway.
So this is Stephen Cohen, the owner. If the path is problematic and needs more attention, I'd rather take an approval for the rest of it if the commission is inclined to do that. and separate the path and do more work on that and come back for it, because I can see that there's a lot of details that you're looking for, which is totally appropriate. But I think that the other areas, if they're potentially approvable, I'd separate them.
Well, the only other area was the Vista corridor. Is that correct?
The Vista, the parking, and the split rail fence.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm okay with that. If he wants to withdraw that.
I think those are provable.
Yeah. If he wants to withdraw that, Tom, then you could just vote on that if he withdraws the path and that whole area. And he can always come back with a revised plan.
Yeah, my only request would be that it was not that there's some notation that it was withdrawn for revisions as opposed to under opposition.
Absolutely. I think they say that to withdraw without prejudice.
Right.
So if the commission likes that idea, we should have a special condition so it's clear that they don't have to do another amended order, that the order, if they want to move forward with the path and the bench or whatever, come back as a revised plan. We should have the special condition.
So right now,
I think that would be our best.
Yeah, would be.
So let me clarify this. So on the table right now, the proposed path on the screen, proposed walkway, proposed seating area, and proposed path are out of this application for now.
But can be approved under a revised plan.
Correct, but it's not for tonight.
Great.
Right? You're removing that piece.
I just don't want to have to end up filing another amended order.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
So one of the commissioners, I think, suggested that instead of trying to relocate those cedars, that it might be more advantageous to just replace them with fresh, healthy native species that would take better, and there would be much less intrusion because you wouldn't need the heavy equipment. You wouldn't be ripping them out. You could be planting them essentially from the roadside. If the commission is okay with that, I actually think it would get you the same result with less disturbance. So I'd be fine with planting, similar sized native species.
You need to specify, size and location. Chuck, we need to specify size and location.
Yeah, so we have the location here. But we can obviously, we'll just show that you guys are going to be looking for a revised plan anyway, so we'll just show that the existing trees to be removed and then the proposed cedars in that same location on this plan.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good suggestion, Mr. Combs.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Just as a follow-up, the existing original order actually has 2 other trees that have the same condition to relocate them. And so I think it probably makes sense to just treat them the same if the commission is so inclined.
Problem is, he's got to note that.
It's these previously approved cedars to be relocated.
Yeah. The previous one here, the one that Chuck is highlighting.
Yeah.
So I think that should be fine. Let me try this. I don't need to go to public comment on this amended order. Let me try this. Could I have a motions to approve this amended order, subject of the revised plan showing the trees the relocated trees to be replanted with what kind of tree do you want?
We're proposing cedars.
Cedar, and then showing the dimension. I need the dimension on the proposed gravel parking area. Let me see here. Maybe a minute.
The path width?
No, there is no path because the path is out.
The revised plan would eliminate that.
Right. Remove the proposed.
The width of the path, it goes kind of along the edge of the property, the northern edge. You were pointing out that it was wider than 4 feet, and it should be 4 feet.
Yeah.
So that needs to be changed.
So narrow the existing path after your construction is done down to the standard 4-foot wide path.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's already the existing condition. We just haven't finished planting it out.
Okay.
But the drawing doesn't show that. That's the problem.
Yeah. I think that's my motions.
So moved or second it or whatever.
I do have one question. Does that include the split rail fence?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I second the motion.
Parking area is all approved.
Yeah.
Second, roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have good night. We have one continuance. The amended order for Stanley de Victoria SE3-5739 proposed changes to the original order conditions, including the relocated wall, along with the proposed pool, patios, sheds, and deck at 55 and 61 Beechwood Road, Sanderville, as shown on the assessor's maps 252, parcel 182 and 008. This is a continuance from July the 19th, and the applicant and the homeowner has requested for a continuance without testimony to August the 30th. This is the fourth continuance and will be the last. And the engineer Dan was kind of sick with the COVID last week, so he didn't have enough time to provide the information. Could I have a motion to continue this amended order without testimony to August the 30th?
Excuse me, George, was Bill, I think Bill, didn't you mull in this?
No, I did not.
No, okay, so it does not include, okay. So it's just the 5 of us.
Yep.
So moved.
Roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Lee?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have one set of minutes, July the 19th.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Moran?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Hearn?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster?
Aye.
Abadili?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. I just want to remind the commissioner that in the next hearing on the August 16th, we have the hearing on the public comment on the revised Chapter 704. For the consultant, make sure that you provide your written comments to the office before the next hearing, if possible. Our next hearing is August the 16th. So, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
That's unanimous. We are adjourned at 6:23.